Okay, so I've got two more Masterverse figures to open after this one. This is not the one that I promised to open next because I found her at Ross Dress for Less for only $3.99. What a crazy good price that is, huh? So yeah, she was one that I was worried I wasn't going to be able to find this one because I will say this figure came out like God, almost a year ago at this point. Maybe yeah, it was no. It was well over a year ago that this figure came out. I remember now because she was in the same assortment as the new Eternia, He-Man, and Skeletor, which I've unboxed when I was living over at the house that I lived at before the last house. So yeah, like never saw any of those figures at retail. Never saw the any of these at retail at all. Except I think I might have seen Merman at some point, but I never saw the new Eternia Skeletor, the new Eternia He-Man. Never saw those at retail at all. The only reason I was able to get them is because I pre-ordered on Amazon. Never was able to see her to pre-order on Amazon, and it seemed like anytime I saw her online, she's been expensive. So I haven't had a chance to get this figure. Never saw it at retail. Uh, so I just kind of figured I missed out on this one. And if I was going to be able to get her, she was going to be expensive. Like I'd see her on Amazon for like $50 or something like that. And I'm like, that's a lot to pay for for that figure. Uh, and I don't know what it is with Teela, but like the classics Teela, really hard to find. Uh, I think the tooling for her might have been damaged or something because Mattel never really wanted to re-release Teela for whatever reason. In classics, you had your Evil Lyn, and then you had Teela, which technically in the classics line, I believe, is a repaint of Evil Lyn, the reverse of how it was in the original line. And then just nothing at all. You had Battleground Teela, and a lot of figures were made based off of that, but we never saw the Teela in the classic costume again until Super 7 took over the line. And I think they just redid the tooling, like Super 7 redid the tooling. So then you had a chance to get that ultimate Teela that Super 7 put out. But, that was one that like you kind of had to pre-order it to get it basically. And so I had the original one because a friend of mine, uh, Mike Trout, shout out to him if he's watching. He had traded me the original Teela for something because he had an extra one, and it was a very generous trade on his part because I think even at that time that was one of the more expensive classics figures. But he traded me that for something. I forget what he traded it to me for, but it was something he really wanted anyway. And he's like, "Look, I know you want a Teela because I know you always talk about how you're trying to find one. I'll trade you that for whatever it was." Oh yeah, they had some other ones at Ross also, so I got an extra Skeletor. So I'm not going to do an unboxing of Skeletor. You've already seen the unboxing of New Eternia Skeletor. If you haven't, go back and check it out on my channel. So yeah, I was working at a place last night and didn't get off until like 7 o'clock in the morning, which is late for me these days. And I had a package that I'd had shipped to my mom's house for reasons, and I decided to go ahead and just stop by my mom's house and get this package. Which, by the way, that package had the 60th anniversary uh, GI Joe uh, classified action sailor. So that's another review that's coming up soon. So I got that ridiculously early. I don't know why that one showed up so early when the rest of them all still say they're showing up in April. but but yeah, since I was over at my mom's house to pick up this, I went over to my mom's house to pick up this package, and she wasn't at the house, and you know, she went to uh, my sister's house to pick up my nephews to take them to school, and I didn't know this though. So I'm over at her house and I'm just kind of poking around, and I notice that there's a cup of coffee on the kitchen table, and I notice it's still warm. So I start running through worst case scenarios in my head because I'm so sometimes I'm too much of a good detective for my own good, and I'm thinking to myself, if there's a cup of coffee on the table that's still warm, there's a chance that she just had to run out of the house and for whatever reason and left this coffee, and it might have been a bad reason. And so I give her a call to make sure everything's okay. Just to be on the safe side, just to make sure everything's fine. And everything was fine. She's like, "Oh yeah, I just want to pick up your nephews, and they were, I guess I forgot about the coffee." And I'm like, okay, cool, that's good. So she's like, "Well, we got to get some breakfast. Do you want some breakfast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want some breakfast. That'd be awesome." So she picks me up some breakfast and comes back. So I wait a little bit longer, because I want to see my mom, and she's bringing breakfast. That's all the more reason to stay for a couple more minutes and wait for my mom to show up. And by the time I leave the house, it's like almost 9 o'clock, and I figure, I might as well run by this Target that's over here because they might have something cool over at that Target. I haven't been to Target in a long time, uh, at least a month since I've been to a Target, and so I go by the Target and they have like bupkis, like there's nothing at all over there, and then I'm like, well, there's this Ross right over here. Might as well just go in there and see if maybe they've got some GI Joes or something. Maybe they got something, and they had the basically this whole wave of Masterverse figures there, and I did not expect to see those at all because I hadn't seen or heard anything about Masterverse being at Ross. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh man, I can get an extra. At first I see Beastman and Skeletor and He-Man, the new Eternia versions, and so they had all four of these in Beastman, and I was like, oh, cool. I could use an extra, new Eternia Skeletor and an extra new Eternia He-Man, and oh my god, oh my god, it's Revelation Teela. And I was so happy to see this figure. You got no idea. So I did see the first Teela that they put out for Revelation, and the one I don't like that design though, like with the shaved head on the side and everything, and it's like you know it, I wasn't sure what I disliked about that design, and I have a very complicated opinion on that design. So let's go on a journey together and talk about that for a minute because I want to talk about that design and this show and this characterization of Teela on this show. So just indulge me for a little bit while I go over all of this stuff. So oh, one other thing I should mention before I get started is I'm sure my Aunt June is going to watch this video. Hi, Aunt June, telling you this in the future, from the past to the future, saying hi to you. My Aunt June's son, my cousin, like most kids in the '80s, was rather obsessed with He-Man for a period. Like most kids were. Like I certainly was. But he also was a big He-Man fan when he was a younger lad, and they had a dog. and their dog was named Teela after this character. So, little bit of a shout out to my Aunt June on that. Uh, but anyway, Teela on Revelation. I did not like the design that she had for most of the show, and uh, as I was thinking about it, as I was watching the show, I realized that the thing that I did not like about that design is that it did not look like a Masters of the Universe character at all. Like, to me, Masters of the Universe is like a fantasy. It's got some sci-fi elements to it, but it's mostly like a high fantasy, like Conan, Frank Frazetta. That's the aesthetic of He-Man. That's what Masters of the Universe is supposed to look like. And as you can see, she's got like a barbarian type outfit. She's got the furry boots and this uh, gold armor and all this kind of stuff. So, but the main design she had on the show, like it to me, it looks more like a Star Wars character, and specifically, it looks more like Cara Dune, just kind of like a palette swap of Cara Dune. And I never had any problem with the design of Cara Dune either. I was like, thought that was fine, but she's a Star Wars character. She looks like a Star Wars character. Teela should look like a He-Man character, not a Star Wars character. So I think that was the thing that really bugged me about her design on that particular show. But, and this gets into the characterization of it too. Here's the thing about Teela's story arc in this series. And spoiler warnings for anybody who hasn't seen Masters of the Universe Revelation or the new Revolution show, which if you haven't watched, you definitely should. It's good. Teela in Revelation, again, spoilers for anybody who has. If you haven't seen it, I want you to skip ahead a few minutes so you don't get spoiled. But it's been out for a couple of years now, so you've had your chance. You've had your chance by this point. Teela in that show, when she sees He-Man turning into Adam, and she sees them both really die. And her father knew that He-Man was Adam the whole time, and Queen Marlena, who's like probably the closest thing she has to a mother, knew that he was He-Man the whole time, and she like feels a sense of betrayal out of this, and I think it was just a really traumatic thing for her. So Teela didn't want to be Teela anymore at that point. So to me, like, it made sense the more I thought about it that Teela would, completely change her look into something that wasn't Teela at all. And then, like, I wouldn't say it made me like that design because I still didn't like it, but it made sense in terms of the story. So I still really wasn't interested in an action figure of it, though. So, and I saw that particular figure, I saw that around a few times, but I never bought it because I just wasn't into that design. This was the one I was holding out for, and finally found her, and here she is. She looks pretty darn cool. So I've been talking about this figure for a while without even opening it up, but I'm very happy to have her. Teela was always one of my favorite characters in the original Master of the Universe line. I really liked the original figure. I thought that the original figure, she had like a really cute doll-like face. Probably like one of the same sculptors that worked on the Barbie line, I would imagine, sculpted that figure. And the face was really cute. And she had these like, because again, going with that Frank Frazetta look, there was some inspiration there. She had these like really thick thighs. The original Teela did. So that probably affected me in some ways, insofar as my own personal taste. I'm going to cut the tape at the top here, and then we'll have a look at the packaging a little bit. So here we have on the side, we have a picture of Teela with her sword and her shield charging into battle. That's with the more classic sort of Filmation Teela hairstyle and the tiara and everything. And then on the back, we can see they've got the other alternate head with the hair down. Now she takes off when she like basically quits being Teela. She takes off her headband and lets her hair fall down, and that look does not last very long. But I do like that look. I like her with the hair down. I think that looks cool. So I'm glad to have the alternate head there. That's before she decides to shave the side of her head, apparently. So we got a bio in the back. So let's go ahead and read the bio. It says Teela, warrior goddess. Got an exclamation point on there and everything. Exclamation. I meant to say exclamation, not explanation. Although we're about to have an explanation. Uh, Learning she had been lied to her entire life, Teela threw down her sword, rejected her title, and turned her back on her family, friends, and all Eternia. Fate, however, has a way of returning. Prince Adam's secret identity as He-Man, the same secret that shattered her trust, became intertwined with her quest to save magic from disappearing from Eternia. So there we go. So she had an interesting character arc, I think, through Revelation, and at the end of it, of course, she reconciles with everybody, and her and He-Man. Spoiler warning again. I've been warning you this whole time. He-Man stops being dead. So I think part of the problem with people's reception to it is that they pushed it as if it was the return of He-Man. But actually what this thing was kind of like the He-Man equivalent of the death of Superman story arc. And I think if instead of calling it Masters Universe Revelation and having a trailer that was nothing but shots of He-Man to holding out for a hero playing in the background, if they'd have sold it as, he's been the protector of Eternia for generations. But what happens when Eternia's greatest champion, the most powerful man in the universe, falls? Netflix presents Masters of the Universe, The Death of He-Man. If they'd have sold it that way, and people knew what they were getting into from the beginning, I think people would have been a lot more open to the concept, and that they wouldn't have felt like there was the bait and switch that was there. So that's my opinion. I could be wrong, but yeah, here we go with Teela. Here she is out of the package, so you can get a better look at her without the glare from the window there. Alternate head, couple alternate hands, and got a shield over here. And this shield looks very much like the shield that came with the original Castle Grayskull in terms of the sculpt. The coloring is like a pale gold, which I think looks really good. So we're going to set that aside for now. And then she has a sword, which I think mine looks like it was a little warped. Like it leans a little bit this way. So hopefully a hairdryer will straighten that out a little bit. It's a nice design of a sword. It's got a symbol on it. We can see that looks somewhat like the symbol that's on Teela's chest. They did a very simplified version of the armor from the original suit that Teela had, which she had like a fairly ornate, complex armor on the original figure, and they simplified that a lot in the Filmation cartoon. And this is like an even more simplified version of it, even though like I think this particular model has a little more detail to it even than the Filmation one had. It still simplifies it in a lot of other ways, but we'll talk about that in a little bit, I think. So she's got some hands, so let's go ahead and pull out these extra hands. And this is a right hand that is a closed fist, so she can punch things. And then this hand is a gripping hand for the left hand, so she can hold her sword with her other hand. And we can see the hands that are on the figure right now. She has a gripping hand on the right hand and an open hand, so she can slap people with her left hand. So yeah, that's all her hands. So and then we got this alternate head. Pop that out of there. There's that. She looks pretty. All right, put that down. And then we got some of the dreaded plastic tabs. Let's go ahead and cut those out with my handy dandy X-Acto knife. Take care not to nick the figure while I do that. So she's got a couple of them around each wrist. And she is embedded fairly deeply in the package. And maybe I can get these ones around her shins a little better. So they did with the female characters on this show a lot, cover up a little more skin than they had in the original designs. So, like for example, Teela's back on the original design is Teela's always had an open back on the original figure, and so they closed all that up. Which I think on the Filmation costume, her back was closed up too. And you can see like they moved her collar up a little bit so she doesn't have any cleavage at all anymore. And so I don't know why they decided to go a little more frumpy with all the women's costumes. It's like pretty much everybody in Masters Universe is showing some skin. I mean, like, where is he? Yeah, here's your main character right here. So but they didn't put pants on He-Man, like, thankfully. I'm not being sexist. I'm not being like I just want to see like skin on the female characters. It's just the way that world works. It's like a lot of these characters just are wearing just furry shorts and loincloths and things like that. And Teela's costume always actually covered up a little more skin than He-Man's, but you know, it's not a bad redesign, but you know, it just is. It is funny to me. It is funny to me. I have to be amused by it. So, and of course, this one has a skirt, which the original figure had like more of a leotard kind of thing. So she had more like shorts. But that's kind of par for course with for Teela designs since the 2000X line. She had a skirt in that. But most of the figures in that one had these longer loincloths, and that's a tradition that's continued. Again, you can see that He-Man, rather than having the molded shorts, has a loincloth. This is not the Revelation He-Man. For those of you who are not familiar with it, this is the new Eternia He-Man. Since I have him handy, he's going to be the one we're going to use. I do have the Revelation He-Man, of course, and I've got a video on that if you want to go back and watch that and see my opinions on that one. But I just don't have him handy right now. So the face sculpt on this one, they did a good job with it. The painting is good. She's got like it's a pretty face, but it's still like, you know, it's still like, you know, kind of a tough looking face. It's she's attractive yet powerful looking, and we can see that she's got the hairstyle that matches very much with the old Filmation design, where it's this long hair that's kind of rolled up into this kind of beehive bun looking thing. So I always liked the way that they drew her hair in the Filmation cartoon. I thought that was an interesting look. She's got a gold tiara over it with a little red gem, blue eyes, very nice head sculpt. It is not the same exact head sculpt as the alternate head. The alternate head has a little bit more of a furrowed brow, so a little bit more of a distressed look. But like I said, this is like a specific scene. It's not just her with a different hairstyle. This is a specific scene and a specific emotion that they were going for with this head sculpt. So that's why she has the slightly more furrowed brow. I think Mattel deserves some kudos for going so far to sculpt an extra, like a completely extra alternate head, and not just doing the same head with a different hairstyle, which they could have very easily done. This hair is a separate piece, so they could have just done a separate, hair sculpt and put it on the same head. Or they could have pulled what Hasbro does with G.I. Joe a lot. Notice that they didn't do this, Hasbro. They didn't just do weird wigs to swap out. They gave us a whole alternate head, and it looks good. So shout out to Mattel for going the extra mile and giving us an extra head, rather than they. And even if they had to give us an extra head, again, they could have just reused the same sculpt, and I don't think anybody would complain. But I noticed the extra effort that went into giving us an entirely new head, and I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. Mattel, you did a good job on that, so good for you. So I'm gonna set that head aside for now. We'll put that head on the figure in a little bit. We'll talk more about these accessories. So it doesn't seem to be any kind of storage or anything on this figure to hold a weapon. So she doesn't have a place to store her sword on the back like a lot of these figures do. Going back to the 2000X Teela, she had like a little loop sculpted into the back of her suit. It would have been nice to have that, but I guess they didn't want to interfere with the aesthetics of the animated design. I believe that He-Man, he didn't have like really anything to store a sword in either for this line. He just kind of stick it in the back of his harness, like you would with the old school He-Man figure. Now, new Eternia figure, he had a big sculpted into his back, so you can put the sword or the axe or whatever you want to into that, so he can store it that way. Oh, and I have also the battle armor new Eternia He-Man. You can see he doesn't have a place to store his sword. He has a place to store his shield, though, so that's interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and deck her out with these accessories so we can fit the sword into her hand. Oh, that was the other thing when she was packaged in there. I forgot to mention is she had the sword packaged in such a way where it looked like she was holding it in her hand, but as Mattel tends to do with these Revelation figures, she's not actually holding it. It's just kind of placed in the package as if she's holding it. So there she is with the sword. Holds that rather nicely. Better than the She-Ra figure held her sword. I'll say that. So there we go. And let's go ahead and put the shield onto her hand. And it does seem like it just kind of like loosely fits on this flat hand. So it just kind of rattles around there. Maybe it would work better if we put the gripping hand onto it. So before I do that, I'm going to put the hand actually onto the shield. So I find this works easier with these Revelations figures. If you put the hand onto the shield first, and then you swap out the hand, rather than having to go through the effort of sticking the hand on that strap, and then it's easier for me to do it this way. So at least it was with like the regular He-Man figures. It might be a little more difficult with her because she's a girl and her hand's so tiny. If I hold it like this, I'm just going to have to try to force the because the peg on the wrist isn't quite as robust as it is with the male Buck. But yeah, there she is holding the shield. And that worked out pretty well. And like I said, this is very similar in design to the shield that came with the original Castle Grayskull with the weapons rack. But this is a new design of a sword. So it does kind of vaguely look like the sword that she used on the Filmation show a lot, but it's not exactly like that one either. So she does have some very muscular arms, which matches up with the design aesthetic of that show. She had very muscular arms on the show. So, but she does still have like a feminine shape to her body. And like I said, they they tend to kind of like try to. I think they overcorrected in terms of, people these days can be kind of hypercritical about, oh, you're sexualizing women. Well, it's kind of hard to do the female form without it looking like, sexual in any way. I mean, like it's difficult to pull that off. So I kind of feel like they kind of de-emphasize her curves, if that's any way to put it. But it still has like a feminine shape to it. But it's not quite as pronounced. I'll put it that way, as either the original figure or the classics figure. But it's fine. She looks good. I think she looks fine. So let's talk a little bit about her articulation. So uh, head looks up about that far. Head looks down about that far. So her head could probably look up higher if this collar wasn't in the way. But that's about as high up as her head looks. I was able to get a little higher that time. So arms rotate all the way around. This joint does seem a little gummy though, but I'm sure it'll loosen up over time. I'm going to be careful with it though, because I don't want to break her arm off. Arms raise up about that far, so that's a good range of motion on that. Arms go down about that far, so you can see like she's got them broad shoulders. Like I said, she's got some nice muscular arms. I like the look of it. She's a warrior woman. She's supposed to look tough, so it's nice that she's got like a bit of a build to her arms, and she's got them thick Teela thighs like she ought to have. So that's good. So let's see, she's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get on the elbows. It's actually a pretty good pose for her right there. Kind of nice look for her, I think. So she does have a bicep cut, so her bicep rotates all the way around there. They did not put the cut where her armband is, which that's how they did it with classics. But I kind of like it better this way because, just because of the shape of the arm, sometimes that joint could look a little awkward there. But whenever you put it like actually at the bicep, that's where the muscle actually kind of differentiates anyway. So I feel like that blends in a little bit better. And then, of course, the wrists rotate all the way around, and they have like a horizontal back and forth movement like that. So that's cool. She's got a torso articulation here, moves all the way around like that. So you can get all kinds of cool poses out of that. And it looks like she does have a waist pivot that's underneath her skirt. So you can also turn her waist. And, there's that famous Filmation Teela butt hiding underneath that skirt. So she's got looks like she's got that same sort of pale gold color for her panties. Sorry, there's just no other way to phrase that. This, like I said, the original version of Teela had like a leotard type thing, and they could have made this white, and I could have imagined it as being like a leotard with a skirt over it. But no, since they made it a different color from what her shirt is at the top, this is like a little tennis dress thing that she's wearing, and she's got gold panties. I'm sorry, folks. There's just no other way for me to phrase that. She's wearing panties. So, now everybody thinks I'm a pervert. Thanks, Mattel. I mean, I am a pervert, but that's nothing to do with this review. This is a wholesome review. It's not a show for kids, but I'm still trying to keep it wholesome. So let's just keep going. Let's power through this. So her leg only moves up about so far. I could probably get it to move up further, but I don't want to force it. The skirt kind of hinders it a little bit, but I think you can still get a pretty good range of motion out of the legs. She can't really do the splits that well, again, because of the skirt. So that's about as well as I feel comfortable trying to get her to do the splits. It is a soft rubbery plastic, so it does have a little bit of give to it. But yeah, that's about as far forward as her leg's gonna stay, at least. And then she's got a thigh cut, so her leg moves all the way around that way. She got double jointed knees, so her knees can kick up about that far. I don't think any of the classics figures had double jointed knees or double jointed elbows. So that's an improvement to the design with the Masterverse. If we're keeping score of, what's better between the Masterverse figures and the classics figures, I think that the Masterverse figures definitely have the edge on terms of articulation. I think that the classics figures probably still have the edge in terms of paint applications, because that was a more sort of high end collector's line than this is a mass retail line. So they don't have, I don't think, quite the budget to put into the painting of the figures that the classics figures had. But they still do a good job, I think, with a lot of that painting detail. So, and then she does have a boot cut, so her boot rotates all the way around, as you can see. And then she's got like kind of the rocker ankles, and that is a really good range of motion, I think, on the how we can raise the toe that way, and then point the toe down that way. So that's some good range of motion there. And since it's a rocker ankle, you can get like whatever kind of pose you need to get out of turning it around that way. So good articulation on this figure. Let's go ahead and pop off the Filmation hairstyle head and pop on this longer hair head. Now, like I said, this is a specific scene that they were going for with this head sculpt, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you can only use it for that. And to an old school fan like myself, who was a fan of He-Man before there even was a Filmation cartoon, to a guy whose introduction to the mythology of Eternia and everything like that was through the mini comics that came with the figures rather than the Filmation cartoon. All due respect to it, and I do recognize it as being the most popular version of the He-Man mythology. But to a guy like me, when Teela with long hair is not an unusual thing to see. We would see that a lot in the mini comics before the cartoon came along. In the Alfredo Alcala mini comics, who is my personal favorite of all He-Man artists, he would oftentimes draw Teela with her hair down. He wasn't overly consistent with how he drew Teela's hairstyle, so she had like kind of varied hairstyles, like all through not even all through like different comics that he did. I'm talking like from one page to the next. He just drew Teela's hair, I guess, however he was feeling it at the time. So she could go from having her hair up in a bun to having her hair completely down around her shoulders like this, to having a ponytail within the same comic and back and forth and just whatever he felt like. But his artwork was beautiful, so I didn't care that like Teela's hair was a little inconsistent here and there. I was more than willing to forgive that. So yeah, I think she looked good with her hair down like that. I think I'm going to keep this head on here for a little bit longer. If nothing else, I have the excuse of it being like something to differentiate it a little bit more from the classics version. So I do have, like I said, I have the He-Man figures handy here. I don't have the Revelation one handy, but I do have the new Eternia one handy, and it uses most of the same parts. So you can see how well they scale together. He's quite a bit taller than her. Obviously got quite a bit more bulk and musculature than her, but he's He-Man. He should be more muscular than like pretty much every character. So, and then to get an idea of what she might look like next to some figures from some other lines, here's Supergirl. You can see her next to Supergirl. She's about the same size as the McFarlane Supergirl. So, we got Manny faces over here, so she can kind of lust after Manny faces like she did in the mini comic. Oh, he's such a great actor. I want to meet him. And then he winds up like, turning into a monster and kidnapping her. So, fun times. And, let's see. Do I have anything else over here to kind of compare with? I have that Skeletor, but I haven't taken that out of the package yet. So So yeah, I'm really happy with this figure. I'm really glad that I was able to find her. I think she's a really great figure. Uh, Even though it took me a while to find her, I'm glad that I eventually did. I'm very happy to have this as part of my collection. Uh, I've been really happy with these Masterverse figures so far as a whole, and like even if you did not like the Revelations Netflix series, I still recommend these figures to anybody who's a fan of He-Man. I feel like they did a really good job with the designs on this show, and this is a nice classic Teela. I mean, obviously the design's a little bit different, a little more simplified than the classics figure, and but it's still like recognizably her. It's not like the kind of standard design that they had through most of that series. They did actually go back and have her in the classic outfit for a little bit at the beginning of the show. And then, of course, at the end of the show, again, spoilers to anybody who hasn't watched this show yet, which, a couple of years ago it came out, she becomes the new sorceress at the end. So she has her own sorceress outfit. And they made a figure of that, and hopefully I'll be able to find that at some point because I really liked the design of Teela as the sorceress. So, but I'm happy to have like what to me would be like default Teela. What would be like what I think of as the character that I grew up with. So she's really cool. I'm happy to have her. Uh, Next episode, I'm gonna probably do the GI Joe Action Sailor. So that's probably going to be the next episode that I do, and then after that, I'll get back onto the Revelations figures. No, it's not a Revelations figure. It's a Masterverse figure. I'm stuck on thinking about Revelation, but it's not. Even though it's Masterverse, it's not a Revelations figure. It's a figure from one of the other subsets in the line. Which what other subsets do we have in this line? We have New Eternia, and we have the movie figures, which I've not been able to find any movie figures. I can't even like find those on Amazon for like a good price. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get the movie figures, unfortunately. And then there's Princess of Power. So there's your hint. It's from either New Eternia or Princess of Power. The next one that I'm going to open up. But that's all the hint you get. That's all I'm saying. Although I do have one other Revelation figure, but that's not going to be the next one I open. So we've got at least one more Revelation figure and one more from one of the other subsets. But I'm not. Oh, I guess there was another subset because there was Sunman, but I don't have any Sunman figures yet, not from Masterverse. So that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all this fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Teela, this figure in particular, and the character of Teela in general. What do you think about the way that they did her characterization on Masters of the Universe Revelation and the follow-up Revolution? Personally, I thought they made Teela maybe a bit too unlikable for the majority of Revelation. And I was willing to forgive it as I was watching it because I'm like, well, maybe they're taking it somewhere. I'm gonna sit back and see what they do with it. And surely enough, I felt like they'd redeemed Teela by the end of it from like, her being kind of cruel to everybody because she felt like she'd been betrayed. That the whole meme about like He-Man was killed and I was the one most affected. This is the scene where Adam is like, Teela, I died. Yeah, and the rest of us had to deal with it. Yeah, the rest of us means you. But by the end of it, she's come back around, and she goes back to being more like the Teela that we knew and loved. Actually, it's kind of funny that it the figure that I pulled out. Oh, let's hold her next to a McFarlane figure and see what she looks like. In the Revolution series, they gave her a different voice actress, and it's actually Melissa Benoist. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm a big fan of hers, though. Supergirl on the Supergirl TV series. You know, this is not a TV series, Supergirl, but it's still Supergirl. So, anyway, that's pretty much it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Goodbye.